Okay. How's everyone doing out there? Okay. What I first want to do is, sorry, just trying to get an adjustment here.
Sorry.
Okay, well, I'm really glad you made it out here tonight, and I hope you're enjoying all the performances.
Really glad you made it out here tonight, and I hope you enjoy all the performances.
It's not really my voice. It's one of the most classic delays made, which is analog, made from Roland. Haven't given much props to Roland. Roland also was one of the first companies that created modular.
I'm really glad you made it out here.
One of their modulars, which is released in Eurorack form recently, is
Really glad you made it out here. Really glad you made it out here. Really glad you made it out here tonight. Really glad you made it out here tonight.
the version of the original, I believe, was called the 100. So you may ask, or you may know by now a little bit about what modular synthesis is. Let me just give you the 5-hour description of what it is, okay? Or the simpler version is just pick up a wire and stick it in a hole, okay? That's the more professional version, and hope it makes some sound. So the modular synthesizer is a type of synthesizer that exists in both physical and virtual forms, consisting of separate specialized modules, which here we're using Eurorack modules. It's a format that was really picked up by the company called Dofer in Germany. And the fellow we have here that we're recognizing his store in Santa Monica, Sean, if you want to wave your hand. I know you don't want anyone to know who you are, but I really like. So Sean was really the person who brought this format to the United States. And we all get down on our hands and knees and bow to him. So thank you, Sean. And so anyways, the modules are not hand-wired together. So each one you're seeing here is individual. It's, to make it simple, it's like one module is a reverb module. And so a reverb, which you're probably all familiar with, is this right here. And then let's say a delay module. That's a delay module. So each one of those modules is separate. They're not hand-wired together, but they're pretty complex in themselves. And the way that you make the synthesizer work is you use these patch cords in a matrix-like patching system to patch each of them together, and hopefully, if you're lucky, you get some cool sounds. You get signals, control voltages, or logic conditions. Logic would be called a clock divider, and a clock divider basically divides a beat up into fractions. So fractions. You may have your simple 4/4 beat, but then you divide the individual beat up into a half, a quarter, a 16th, a 32nd, a 64th, and that's where you can get variations in rhythm. So So let's see, I'm reading something here. So a synthesizer is built up of a couple modules. Now when I talk about a synthesizer, if you go to like Guitar Center and you see a cool synthesizer or a MIDI keyboard, the way that it makes sound is through a couple of different steps. Now those steps, the main part of the step, if you want sound, is called a VCO. It's called a voltage controlled oscillator. And like a sine wave, John, I think we're all familiar with a sine wave. John, a sine wave would be like wee. John, and then you have things like a B, which might be a triangle wave, like a bzzz, right? Okay, so you start out with the sound of a VCO, John, and then you can affect that sound, but you can't pitch it yet with a couple of different things. The next way you can affect the oscillator is with an LFO. Now, LFO is called a low frequency oscillator, meaning that you really can't hear it, but it affects an oscillator or other things. So LFO would be typical like a vibrato, so it would go whoa, 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 whoa. And if we add a little bit of echo into that, so you get the whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, I'm going to change a different type of delay on this particular module. Okay. So now you got your oscillator, you got your low frequency oscillator if you choose to use it, and then the sound goes through an envelope generator. An envelope generator is basically takes the sound, and the very initial sound is called an attack when you press a key, and then it rises to, well, let me describe what an envelope generator is. It's called an ADSR, so attack, decay, sustain, and release. So the attack goes up to the decay, which is the highest point. It drops down to a sustain, and then the final part of the wave is a release. So if you hit a key on a piano and let it go quick, it's going to reverberate and kind of finish out, and that's the release. So now you've got an oscillator, you can affect it with an LFO, and then you have an envelope generator, and you also have an envelope generator that affects volume, and that's called a VCA. It's called a voltage controlled amplifier. Actually, I'm sorry, it's not called a VCA. Envelope can affect a VCA. So a VCA is a voltage controlled amplifier which controls the amp volume, and that would go through an envelope. So it's the combination of both. That's kind of a VCA. Then your typical like acid house sound, that really screechy sound, is created by a VCF. A VCF is called a voltage controlled filter. Now a filter shapes the sound, okay? So a filter is going to refine the highs or bring out the lows. So it's either or wee, just really winds it right out. Okay? And then you have a mixer. So that's about it. So you got your oscillator, you got your LFOs to affect the oscillator. Then you've got your envelopes. You both have an envelope that treats sound over time, and you have a VCA which treats volume over time. And then you have a filter, and finally you have a keyboard, and a keyboard would affect the pitch. So you have the A, B, C, D, E, F, G on the keyboard, and so in the modular realm, we use what's called a sequencer, and a sequencer basically is a programmable device that programs pitches. And along with a pitch, you need a gate. You need a gate. So you got a trigger, which will trigger the pitch, as if I hit a key really quick, it's just going to go bump, bump. And then a gate is going to open that key up and then release it in a certain period of time. So you need those two to control the whole sequence. So everything in between, delays, reverbs, ring modulators, phasers, flangers, sample and holds, those are all little things that are going to help us create a whole texture of sounds. Now with modular, the great thing with modular is that we can add tons and tons and tons of these effects on top of one another and create, you know, like really cool different kind of effects. So what I'm doing with a delay here is I'm affecting pitch by changing the rate on this particular module, by changing the rate of delay. And so what that's doing is changing the pitch. Now Roland created what you're hearing is called the Space Echo RE201, and I know you really needed the RE201 because that is the thing that you never forget, okay? Like me, I could be introduced to you and you could tell me your name is John, like the most common name in the world, and in about 2 seconds I'm going to forget your name, okay? Because I have this uncanny ability to remember Latin names, but I can't remember people's names. Now, what does that have to do with changing pitch and rate and this and that and the other thing? Actually, I was talking about the model number of the Space Echo from Roland. See, I even forgot what I was talking about. But anyways, let's, I want to show you now, like you've heard from these other folks right here who have refined their craft, I want to show you a little bit of my craft. Bye. No, bye-bye.